I am Elysia Smith, 16 years old, and right inside my own home, I was turned into a criminal. Just because my younger sister Haley cried and accused me of stealing money, my parents immediately believed her, tore my room apart, and found the stack of bills she had already hidden under my pillow. I begged them, swore I was innocent, but the doors still slammed shut, pushing me out into the freezing October night, barefoot, holding nothing but a black trash bag stuffed with clothes. In that moment, I believed my life had fallen apart. But I had no idea that just a few weeks later, Grandma Maggie, the woman everyone in the family thought was too old to notice anything, would accidentally overhear a secret that would force everyone to bow to the truth. Have you ever been misunderstood or treated unfairly right inside your own family? Share your story and tell me where you're watching from, so I know I'm not alone. Since I was a child, I had grown used to being compared to Haley, as if my life existed only to serve as a backdrop to her brightness. I remember once, when I was just 10, Mom gave Haley the simple task of setting the table. She dropped an entire stack of plates onto the floor, shards scattering everywhere. Dad walked in, frowned, but then sighed and waved it off. It's okay, she's still little. That same year, I forgot to lock the garage door just once, and for an entire week Dad wouldn't stop repeating the word irresponsible, as if I had committed some terrible crime. As I grew older, the favoritism didn't disappear, it became clearer with every passing year. I studied hard, spent hours reading, doing homework, and teaching myself more. Once, I won first place in a statewide art competition, and my painting was displayed at the Central Library of Columbus. When I proudly brought the certificate home, Mom only gave a faint smile and said, "That's nice, probably just lucky." Meanwhile, Haley only had to get cast as a minor role in her school's spring play, and our parents flooded Facebook with photos, writing, "Our little girl is a born star." I sat in the dark, staring at that post, feeling my heart tighten, because it was painfully clear their recognition always tilted to one side no matter who had truly worked harder. Not only in academics, but even in the smallest daily matters, the scales always tipped toward Haley. If she broke a vase, I was the one called down to clean it up. If she skipped washing the dishes, I was the one forced to stand at the sink and finish the chore. In my parents' eyes, I was the child who had to take the blame, the shield to cover every mistake Haley made. I once tried to fight back, blurting out, "Why is it always my fault?" Dad roared, his hand slamming onto the table so hard it rattled the entire kitchen. "Don't be disrespectful. As the older daughter, you're supposed to take responsibility." That sentence engraved itself into my memory like a lifelong sentence, binding me to carry not only my own mistakes but also those of someone else. Yet, the paradox was this. Even though Haley was favored at home, she was always jealous of me at school. I never tried to become the center of attention, but somehow my quiet diligence made teachers appreciate me and classmates trust me. In 9th grade, I joined the art club and won a creativity award. The principal even mentioned my name during the morning assembly. Haley, who attended the same school, stood among the students as I walked up to the stage to receive my certificate. I caught a glimpse of her eyes flashing with a bitterness she could not hide. Later at home, she sneered, "All you do is draw useless things. What's the point?" I stayed silent, but deep inside I knew that envy was far from small. The weight of everything piled up, creating a gap that grew wider every year. When Haley was given a brand new phone for her birthday, I received only a notebook with the reminder, "Learn to save." I cherished that notebook, filling it with emotions and sketches, but I could not deny the sting I felt when I saw my sister showing off her phone to her friends. To outsiders, we may have looked like a perfectly normal family, but I knew the truth, I was nothing more than a shadow. More and more, I began to understand one thing. Favoritism is not simply about giving one person special treatment, it is also about completely erasing the other. I existed, but as if invisible. Every effort was diminished, every small mistake magnified into a crime. Meanwhile, Haley, protected unconditionally, grew increasingly certain she could manipulate any situation she wanted. That warped sense of entitlement planted the seed for the false drama she would later stage against me. That night, I was halfway through sketching a drawing to submit to the art club. Outside the window, the October wind slipped through the cracks and made the curtain tremble softly. I thought it would be a quiet evening like so many others. But then my bedroom door burst open with a loud bang, making me jump. My father stormed in, face flushed, with my mother and Haley right behind him. I hadn't even had time to ask what was going on when Haley buried her face in her hands, sobbing, her shoulders shaking. I saw her take money from Dad's wallet. I was so scared, I didn't dare tell anyone, but now, I can't keep it in anymore. My heart sank. For a moment the blood stopped flowing. I jumped up, stammering, "What? Haley, what are you saying? I never." But Dad wasn't listening. He lunged straight at my bed, his rough hands flipping over pillows and blankets, shoving his arm down between the mattress. And then, as if it had all been scripted, he pulled out a crumpled stack of bills and threw it onto the floor, his eyes blazing with both anger and contempt. "Here. The proof is right here. Still want to deny it?" It felt as if the ground had vanished beneath me. My mouth opened but no air came out. I knew I had never touched my father's wallet, never even thought of it, yet now the money was in my room, under my pillow, as if I had hidden it myself. I collapsed to my knees, clutching the edge of the bed, my lips trembling. I didn't do it. I swear, someone put it here." Haley stood pressed against our mother, tears streaming down her face, her voice trembling yet strangely clear. "I'm scared of her, Dad. So many times she's snapped at me, her eyes wide like she wanted to hit me. I didn't dare say anything, but I know she's capable of anything." She spoke, then buried her head against Mom's shoulder, but her eyes flicked toward me, flashing a quick, triumphant gleam so fast no one else would notice. I saw it clearly, because that look pierced my skin like a needle. I turned to my mother, my eyes pleading, begging for understanding, for just a drop of trust. All I hoped was that she would step forward, place her hand on my shoulder, and say she believed me, that this needed to be clarified. But she didn't. She stayed silent, her face tense, her lips pressed tight, then gave a small nod to my father as if sealing a verdict. I could hear my heart hammering in my chest, each beat tearing at me from the inside. "I can't believe this, Elysia," my father growled, his voice rumbling through the small room. "You dare steal in this house and still try to deny it? I've been too lenient with you. You're ungrateful, a failure, wasting your time with useless drawing instead of learning how to be a decent person." He raised a finger, pointing straight at my face, while my mother pulled Haley even closer, whispering, "Don't be afraid, sweetheart, Mommy's here." I broke into tears not because of the accusation, but because I realized nothing I said mattered. My cries of innocence dissolved into the air, unheard. I tried to force out one last plea, my voice catching in my throat. "Please believe me, I didn't do it. Haley, you know the truth." But she only burrowed deeper into Mom's shoulder, crying as though she herself were the victim. My father didn't give me another second to explain. He bent down, yanked the black trash bag from the corner of the room, stuffed in a few pieces of clothing, some worn-out socks, and a thin jacket with frayed shoulders, then hurled it hard against my chest. His voice thundered with rage. "Take this and go, this house doesn't harbor thieves." My mother stood behind him, saying nothing, just clutching Haley tighter to her chest as if she were the one who needed protection. I looked around the room that had once been my small refuge, the place where I'd taped my drawings to the walls and filled journals with my thoughts. Now it had become the scene of an unnamed crime, and I was the one condemned. My father gripped my arm and dragged me out of the room. I tried to resist, tried to turn my head toward my mother, searching for a sign, a word of protest, but she only averted her eyes and patted Haley's back as she pretended to sob. It all felt like a staged play, and I was the only character who didn't belong on that stage. The front door swung open, a gust of cold wind slicing across my face like a blade, making me shiver. My father shoved me outside, the trash bag thudding to the ground with a dry thump. My bare feet touched the icy concrete, the chill shooting from my soles up my spine until I trembled to the marrow. The door slammed shut behind me, the lock clicking with a hard, final sound. Inside, the house went dark and silent, as if I had never existed. I stood frozen for a few seconds, my breath breaking into white clouds in the night air. I wanted to raise my hand and knock, wanted to scream. I didn't do it. Please listen to me. But the images of my father rifling through my pillow, my mother's nod of agreement, and those cold eyes came flooding back. I knew that even if I knocked until my fists bled, even if I screamed until my voice cracked, the only answer would be silence or something even crueler. I picked up the trash bag, hugged it tightly against my chest, and staggered down the steps. Darkness swallowed the empty street whole. Dry leaves scraped against the sidewalk, and the wind whistled through the iron fence, making my skin prickle. I kept walking aimlessly, my bare feet pressing against the rough pavement, each step sharp with pain, but I didn't dare stop. Because if I stood still, I feared I'd turn back, knock on the door, and face my father's contemptuous eyes and my mother's cold nod all over again. I walked on until the faint yellow glow of the park near my school came into view. It wasn't a safe place, but at least there were benches and trees to block some of the wind. I sat down, leaning my back against the bench, clutching the trash bag as if it were the only thing left from my old life. My stomach churned with hunger, my throat dry and raw, and in that moment I realized I truly had nothing but myself. The night dragged on slowly. Every small sound made me jump, the distant hum of cars, a dog barking at the end of the street. Even the rustling of the wind unsettled me. I pulled the thin jacket from the trash bag and wrapped it around my shoulders, but the cold still seeped through, creeping into my skin. I drew my legs up on the bench, hugging them tight to my chest, trying to close my eyes. But instead of sleep, my mind spun, replaying over and over the scene of my father finding the money under my pillow, Haley's false sobs, my mother turning away. Those images looped like a broken film, tormenting me without end. Every so often, a strong gust of wind would blow through and I'd shiver so hard my whole body shook. I even thought about going back, standing at the door, begging them to let me in. But then I'd see my father's snarling face in my mind. "You're a failure." I'd hear my mother whispering to Haley, "Don't be afraid, sweetheart, Mommy's here." If I went back, it would be like walking into my own trial again. No, I couldn't. I chose to stay in the park, even if it meant shivering until dawn. My eyes must have drifted shut without me realizing it, sleep coming in shallow, broken fragments. I dreamed I was standing outside the house, knocking on the door, but inside, my parents laughed and talked happily with Haley, as if I didn't exist. I screamed, I cried, but my voice was nothing more than the wind, dissolving into nothingness. I jolted awake, my heart pounding, cold sweat breaking across my forehead. The darkness still surrounded me, but it wasn't a dream. It was the raw, unshakable truth. When the faint light of dawn filtered through the leaves, I found myself still curled up on the park bench, my legs numb, my toes cracked and bluish. I had never imagined that one day I would greet the first morning of my wandering life this way. And the cruelest part wasn't the cold, nor the hunger, it was the truth. I had been thrown away by my own family, as if I had never been their daughter at all. As the sun rose higher, I dragged my aching feet out of the park, the black trash bag clutched tightly in my hands like bitter proof of being cast aside. I didn't know where to go, but my first instinct was to head toward the only house where I still felt I could knock. Samantha's. She had been my neighbor since childhood, the same age as me, and even though her family was strict, we shared a quiet but steady friendship. Limping down the familiar street, my heart tightened yet flickered with a fragile spark of hope. When Samantha opened the door, I nearly broke down in tears. Her eyes widened, and she immediately pulled me inside, asking breathlessly, "Elysia, what happened? Why do you look like you just slept on the street?" All I could do was shake my head, my voice thick with grief. They didn't believe me. They threw me out. Samantha bit her lip, her gaze filled with sorrow. Without another word, she led me upstairs, found a pair of thick socks and a thin blanket, and handed them to me. That night, for the first time after those endless hours, I lay down on a real bed. The familiar scent of her blanket and the soft yellow glow of her bedside lamp made me want to cry all over again, but this time, it was out of relief. I stayed there for a few days. Samantha secretly shared her sandwiches with me, hiding me from her parents so I wouldn't be discovered. But no secret can stay hidden forever. On the third day, Samantha's mother happened to walk past the room and saw me sitting on the bed clutching my trash bag. She froze, her face draining of color. That evening she called me down to the living room. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Elysia, I care about you, but your family is in trouble. We can't get too involved. You need to find somewhere else to stay." "I don't want trouble." I stood there stunned, feeling as if the floor had given way beneath me. Samantha burst into tears, begging, "Mom, please, Alicia has nowhere else to go." But her mother's eyes stayed fixed on me, steadfast and worried, as though I were a ticking bomb that could go off at any moment. And so I set out again. I began my cycle of couch surfing, staying one night after another at different friends' houses. At Julia's, I curled up in a damp basement, the musty smell making me cough through the night. At Kayla's, I was only allowed to sleep on the living room sofa, but after 2 days her father frowned and said, "That girl still has parents. There's no reason we should be taking care of her." I understood. No one was obligated to take me in. Gradually, each time I asked for shelter, I carried only a thin hope that I might have one more night out of the rain. But soon the refusals came in many forms. "My parents don't agree. It's not convenient. Just one more night, okay?" On the last night at a friend's house, I overheard her parents arguing in the next room, their whispers slipping through the wall. "If we keep letting that girl stay here, we could get dragged into the Smith family's mess. I don't want to be involved." I knew then it was time to leave. There was no place that truly welcomed me. In the days that followed, I was forced to seek out places no one would ever imagine as a bed for a 16-year-old girl. The public library became my regular shelter. I would sit in a hidden corner on the second floor, pretending to read until everyone left. When the staff came around to announce closing time, I would act as if I were leaving too, then slip back inside and curl myself into a dark corner near the old bookshelves. Nights in the library weren't as cold as the streets, but the stillness made my heart tighten. I flinched at every small sound: the creak of a door, the footsteps of the cleaning crew. My sleep came in shallow bursts, always laced with the fear of being discovered. When I couldn't stay at the library, I went to the gas station near school. There, the neon lights stayed bright all night, rows of hard plastic chairs lined the wall, and the night shift clerks had grown used to my face after seeing me so many times. They didn't ask questions, they just glanced at me and let me sit quietly. I hugged my trash bag to my chest, resting my head on the cold plastic table, trying to sleep amid the sharp smell of gasoline and the steady hum of the pumps. Once, a truck driver stared at me for a long time, his eyes a mix of pity and suspicion, and I shivered. I pulled my jacket up to cover my face, pretending I was just waiting for someone to pick me up. Hunger became a habit during those days. I survived on cheap bread bought with the few coins I had saved, sometimes grabbing discarded snacks from convenience stores. Every time I saw a family walk into the gas station laughing, buying hot food, then driving away, my chest ached. I used to have a family too. Unfair as it was, it had still been a roof over my head. Now all of it was gone, leaving me adrift, a 16-year-old girl lost in a vast city. And the more places I passed through, the more I came to realize a cruel truth. I had become a burden in everyone's eyes. My friends pitied me but could only help temporarily, while adults always feared trouble. I started to believe that maybe I really was invisible, that no one wanted to keep me. And that hurt more than the cold or the hunger ever could. School had once been the only place where I felt I had any worth, the place where my drawings hung in the hallway, where teachers used to smile and call me the most creative girl in class. But after the night I was thrown out, everything changed so quickly I couldn't even catch my breath. The rumor that I had stolen money from my own father began creeping through every corner of the hallways, spreading like fire through dry grass. Within days, wherever I went, I heard whispers, half scorn, half pity. That's the Smith girl. I heard she stole from her dad. A girl's voice drifted as I walked into class. No wonder she's always so quiet. Guilty conscience, I guess. Another voice chimed in. I tried to ignore it, keeping my head down over my notebook, but each word landed in my ears like tiny knives. Before, I had a few close friends besides Samantha, people who used to invite me to lunch or work on group projects together. But after the rumor, those invitations vanished. When I approached, they shifted their chairs away or pretended to be busy. One time, I set my lunch tray down at a table and a group of girls silently stood up, the scrape of their chairs loud in the empty space they left behind. I bit my lip, swallowing hard, pretending not to notice, but inside I felt myself shattering. It wasn't just my classmates, even the teachers I admired changed. My English teacher, the one who had once encouraged me to submit my writing to a statewide competition, now looked at me with a distant expression. When I turned in an assignment late because I had slept at the gas station the night before, she didn't ask why, she just shook her head. Alizia, you need to be more responsible. I wanted to explain, but exhaustion clogged my throat. My gym teacher, who had always praised my endurance runs, now only frowned when I asked to sit out because I was too weak. If you don't want to participate, just say so. Don't make excuses. I realized then that in the eyes of the adults, the rumor had become truth. No one asked me for proof, because no one cared. The loneliness at school was sharpened by small, malicious acts. A tall basketball player who had chatted with me in the cafeteria last year now deliberately rammed his shoulder into mine as I walked down the hall. Better watch my wallet, he sneered, his mocking laugh echoing down the corridor. His friends burst into laughter, leaving me frozen, my heart pounding and my face burning. I didn't dare react. I only bent down to pick up my scattered notebooks, my hands trembling. My silence only made them more delighted. And in that moment, I felt I had truly become a pitiful shadow, a cheap amusement for others. Lunchtime was the worst. I had once sat at tables with Samantha or a few other friends, eating and talking about assignments. But now even Samantha couldn't always sit with me. Her mother had started to notice and worry about getting involved. I would shuffle into the cafeteria carrying a tray with nothing but a small carton of milk and a packet of crackers bought with the few coins I had left. The plastic tables buzzed with laughter and chatter, but it all felt closed off to me. I chose a far corner, sitting quietly. My stomach twisted and growled so hard it felt like it might turn itself inside out, but my mouth didn't want to eat. I just sat there, staring at the plates of pizza, hamburgers, and piles of fries in front of my classmates, the smell filling the room. I used to think school lunches were ordinary, now they had become a form of torture. Once, I noticed two boys sitting nearby whispering, their eyes flicking toward me. I heard her parents kicked her out. Bet she's sleeping rough somewhere, one snickered. Yeah, look at that ragged bag she's carrying. Total street kid, the other replied, and they both laughed. I clutched the black trash bag I still had to carry everywhere because it held everything I owned. I wanted to scream, to tell them I hadn't stolen anything, that I was just a victim. But I knew no one would listen, and if I shouted, they would only laugh louder. The hunger and the loneliness blended together, choking every breath I took. At night, I dragged myself to the library or the gas station, forcing a few dry crackers into my stomach. During the day, I sat in class with my stomach growling loud enough to betray me. I started scribbling in my little notebook, not drawings anymore, but broken sentences, a way to hold on to my sanity. I'm not wrong. I didn't steal. I have to survive. Those were the words I repeated, like a silent oath to myself. But no matter how many times I reminded myself, the truth stayed harsh. I had lost my family, and now I was slowly losing my place at school too. I was being pushed out from both the inside and the outside, like a child with no home, no friends, no one to believe in me. And just when it seemed I couldn't sink any lower, something even crueler emerged. The adults, the very people who were supposed to protect me, began turning their backs as well. After a week of drifting through school like a shadow, I realized I couldn't keep enduring it alone. The rumors hadn't died down, they had only spread wider. Every time I walked the hallway, I felt eyes on me and heard whispers cutting into my ears. I thought maybe, if I told the truth to an adult, someone with authority at school, things would change. That morning, I gathered all my courage and went to the guidance counselor's office. The small room smelled faintly of coffee and printer paper. The counselor, a middle-aged woman with glasses, looked up at me when I knocked softly on the door. I sat down in the chair, my hands trembling around my notebook. I told her everything. The night my parents searched my room, Haley's false tears being thrown out into the cold. I swore over and over that I hadn't taken any money, that something unfair was happening. She listened, nodding, occasionally murmuring, "Mm-hmm." When I finally stopped, my eyes red and waiting for reassurance, she only sighed. "Elysia, I believe you're going through a lot of difficulties. But without concrete evidence, no one can really do anything. My advice is to focus on your studies and try not to let your family issues affect you. This will pass." That answer fell on me like a heavy stone. I wanted to scream, "How can it pass when everyone thinks I'm a thief?" But I just sat there, hollow inside, knowing another door had closed. I walked out of the office, my steps heavy, feeling that the adult world was nothing but walls of silence. That night, I decided to try calling my aunt, my mother's younger sister, who lived in a town about an hour's drive away. I hoped at least she would listen and offer me a way out. On the other end of the line, she was quiet for a moment after hearing my story, then spoke softly. "Elysia, I understand, but you shouldn't make a big deal out of this. The best thing is for you to go home and apologize. Adults can be wrong, but as a child you should give in. That's how things stay peaceful." I was stunned. Apologize when I hadn't done anything? I tried to say, "But I didn't take the money. I can't confess to Haley's crime." My aunt cut me off. "Life isn't fair, sweetheart. If one apology can keep the family calm, then you should do it. Don't fight your parents." Her voice sounded like advice, but in my ears it was a knife, confirming that no one cared about the truth, only about silence. The next day, as I was sitting on the bench near the library, I heard a familiar voice calling. Looking up, I saw my father. He stood there with his arms crossed, his eyes filled with anger and authority. A chill ran down my spine. He stepped closer, his voice clipped and sharp. "You've embarrassed me enough. Come home now. But first, you're going to admit you took the money. You're going to apologize to me, to your mother, to Haley. Only then will there be peace." Agree. I trembled, but still tried to gather the last scraps of strength inside me. "I didn't do it. I can't confess to something I didn't do." His face flushed red, his fist clenched tight. He leaned down, his words hissing through his teeth. "If you don't listen, I'll call the police. I'll say you stole money and ran away. I have plenty of people who'll testify. You want to end up in jail?" My heart dropped into a pit. I realized that to my father, the truth meant nothing. He didn't want to know whether I was innocent or not. He just wanted me to kneel, to admit guilt, to restore the image of a model family in front of the neighbors and the church community. When I looked into his eyes, I saw only coldness, emptiness. He was no longer the father I had once hoped would protect me. He was just someone who wanted to control everything, including my truth. I stepped back, my voice hoarse. "If you want to call the police, go ahead. I won't confess. I didn't steal." I turned and walked away, my feet heavy as if weighed down by stones. Behind me, I heard him shout, "You'll regret this, Elysia, you'll regret it." But this time, I didn't stop. That night, I sat back at the gas station, my mind spinning with his threat. I imagined myself in handcuffs, branded a criminal, all because of a lie. But deep down, I knew, in my father's eyes, the truth had died long ago. He wasn't seeking justice, he just wanted me to surrender. And in that very moment, amid the smell of gasoline and the flickering neon lights, I swore to myself, I would never let him or anyone take away my voice again. I thought I had hit rock bottom after my father threatened to call the police. But there was an even deeper abyss waiting. One Friday afternoon, as I was trudging out of art class, my worn shoes barely holding on at the heels, Haley appeared. She leaned against the row of lockers in the hallway, hair tied high, uniform neat, looking exactly like the model daughter my parents always bragged about. As I walked past, she curled her lips into a smile. "Oh, look. The failure still dares to come to school," Haley said in a saccharine voice, loud enough for a few students to turn and look. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Her eyes gleamed with delight, like a hunter who has finally cornered a weakened prey. "Everyone believes me, Elysia. From our parents to the teachers, even your friends. You're nothing but a liar, a thief, a failure." I swallowed and tried to keep my voice steady. "Why would you do this? You know I didn't take the money." Haley laughed then, a brittle, hollow sound like breaking glass. She leaned in close and whispered just loud enough for me to hear, where no one else would. "Yes, I put the money under your pillow. I wanted you gone and you're gone." Easier than I thought. I stood there stunned. Her words sank into me like a cold blade. All the suspicion, all the pain of the past weeks, were now confirmed by her own mouth. I staggered and gripped the locker door to steady myself, watching Haley's face light up with triumph. She tilted her head, her eyes glittering like razors. "And listen, if you ever open your mouth, I'll invent more. I'll say you hit me, I'll cry, I'll create proof. You'll be sent straight to a reform camp. Everyone will believe me. No one believes a stray failure like you." I felt my whole body go cold, as if I'd just been plunged into an icy lake. My breathing turned ragged, my hands shook so hard I almost dropped the black trash bag I still carried everywhere. I wanted to fight back, to scream in her face that the truth would win, but in those sharp, glinting eyes I saw naked cruelty. Haley wasn't just the little sister my parents coddled anymore. She had become someone who could manipulate the entire world around me with a few false tears. A group of students walked past, their eyes flicking toward us before looking away. No one stopped, no one asked. Haley and I were like two shadows in a hidden corner, one triumphant, one trembling. I lowered my head, trying to swallow my tears, but her voice kept pouring into my ears. "Don't be stupid, Elysia. Silence is the only thing that can save you, remember that." She turned and walked away, confident steps, her ponytail swinging behind her, leaving me standing there with my heart tightening. I don't know how long I stayed. All I know is that when the dismissal bell rang and the hallway emptied, I was still leaning against the lockers, my mind spinning. Her words etched themselves into me like carvings in stone. "I planted the money. I wanted you gone. I knew I couldn't tell anyone." Without proof, her story would be believed, and I would sink even deeper. Weeks after that venomous encounter with Haley, I continued my drifting days, surviving nights at the library and on cold plastic chairs at the gas station. I didn't know that while I was clinging to crumbs of food and the fragile hope that I wasn't completely invisible, another truth was waiting to surface, and the person who would witness it was the last one anyone would expect: Grandma Maggie. That evening, Grandma hosted a small dinner at her suburban home. Her red brick house sat tucked among rows of maple trees shedding their autumn leaves, warm yellow light spilling from the windows, radiating peace. I wasn't there. My mother had told her I was attending an important science seminar organized by the school, a lie crafted to hide the truth that I was wandering the streets. Did she believe it? Maybe outwardly she pretended to, but deep down she held on to her habit of quiet observation, and this time, that very habit became a turning point. Haley, of course, was the star of the evening. She wore a cream-colored knit dress, her hair neatly tied up, soaking in our mother's endless praise. "My daughter looks so mature," Mom cooed. Dad nodded proudly, bragging about Haley's academic achievements, few as they were, yet still a shining badge in his eyes. Grandma Maggie sat at the head of the table, silent, her sharp eyes following every move. The dinner seemed calm, ordinary, until Haley pulled out her phone and started a FaceTime call with a cousin living in another state. I wasn't there, but later Grandma told me, and I could picture it clearly. The screen lit up, Cheerful greetings filled the air. Haley lowered her voice, but not enough those seated nearby could still hear. She smirked, her eyes glittering with mischief. "You won't believe it," she laughed. "I pulled the perfect trick on her. Slipped the money under her pillow, cried a little, and everyone believed me. Now she's gone from the house, from school, no one's left to defend her." In that moment, Grandma Maggie's spoon froze midair. No one noticed my parents were too busy smiling at each other, proud that Haley had earned their absolute trust. But inside Grandma, a storm began to rise. She didn't interrupt, didn't shout, didn't slam the table. Instead, she quietly set her iPad on the table, tapped a few times, and opened the voice recorder. Haley's words were captured every syllable, clear and undeniable. She sat there with the same calm expression, looking to anyone else like just an old woman listening to the chatter of children. But inside, every muscle in her body was tense. Each of Haley's confessions cut into her heart like a knife. The spoiled granddaughter had turned into someone so cruel, so willing to destroy her own sister. Grandma thought of me, my quiet eyes, my faint voice, the look of a child abandoned, and her chest tightened with pain. Haley kept bragging into the screen. "She thought she was smart, but she's just dumb. Everyone believes me, our parents, the teachers. Nobody's on her side, she's nothing but a failure." Her laughter rang loud and bright, echoing in the room. My parents sat there beaming, oblivious to the venom beneath the words. But Grandma heard every shade, every cruel undertone. When the call ended, Haley set the phone down and went back to her meal as if nothing had happened. Grandma quietly slipped the iPad back into her bag, her hand trembling slightly but her eyes steady. She didn't speak for the rest of dinner, only sipped her tea, occasionally glancing at Haley as she chattered about school. My parents noticed nothing unusual. But inside Grandma, a decision had already been made. That night, after everyone had gone home, Grandma remained alone in the living room. The lamplight fell across her wrinkled face, but her eyes gleamed sharp and unwavering. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heart race. "Dear Lord," she whispered, "Elysia is truly innocent." A hot tear slipped down her cheek, not from weakness, but from fury and sorrow. She knew, from that very moment, she could no longer remain silent. The truth had to be brought into the light, and she would be the one to do it. Inside her, waves of emotion churned, yet her face stayed calm as a still lake. It was the strength only a woman who had endured a lifetime of pain and loss could possess. She knew that if she confronted them directly now, my parents would deny everything, and Haley would cry and twist the story again. But with the evidence in her hands, she held the advantage. She would choose the time and the way for the truth to surface so that once revealed, it could never be buried. The next morning, while dew still clung to the cement steps outside, Grandma Maggie, dressed in her charcoal knit coat, tied a silk scarf around her neck, and drove her old car to the red brick church on the corner of Broad Street. She sent my mother a short message. "Meet me in the prayer room after morning service." My mother arrived right on time, light makeup on her face, clutching a leather-bound Bible as if it were a symbol of the model family image she fought to preserve. The church hallway was hushed, the scent of oak mingling with candle wax softening the air. Colored glass windows cast scattered patches of green and red across the floor, like fragments of truth waiting to be pieced together. Grandma Maggie led my mother into the small room behind the pulpit, closed the door, drew the heavy curtain, and set the iPad on the table. Her voice was low, not loud but firm. "Sit down, Melissa. I need you to listen to something. Just listen, no excuses, no interruptions." My mother looked surprised, frowning. "I'm on the evening shift today. Can we make this quick? I have a lot to do." Grandma did not answer. She opened the recording app. The sound played, at first the vague clatter of dishes, then Haley's voice, sweet and smug, each word like a pin. "You won't believe it. I pulled the perfect trick on her. I slipped the money under her pillow, then pretended to cry, and everyone believed me. Now she's gone from the house, from school, no one defends her." The room seemed to shrink. My mother's eyes widened. Her hands gripped the Bible so tightly her knuckles went white. She shook her head slightly. No, it can't be, my Haley. Grandma Maggie said nothing and pressed play again. What followed hit like another hammer blow. If she ever opens her mouth, I'll make something up. I'll say she hit me. Everyone will believe me. This time, my mother had nothing to hold on to. Every layer of makeup and every story about keeping up appearances crumbled like old plaster. She put her hands on the table, gasped, then sank into the wooden chair as tears poured out uncontrollably. My God, what have I done? Elysia, the child, and yet I. Her sentence broke off, like a string snapped taut. Grandma stood beside her, eyes both stern and full of pity. You haven't just been wrong, Melissa. You left an innocent child out on the street in the cold for the sake of pride and because you believed a fake cry. And do you know what? You owe more than an apology to Elysia. You owe her the truth. My mother wiped her tears, her voice hoarse. What do you want me to do? I will call her, I will apologize, I will. Grandma cut her off, decisive. It's not enough. A private apology won't restore the honor you and David stripped from her in front of the neighbors, the teachers, the whole church community. You must clear Elysia's name publicly. Today. My mother looked up in panic. Publicly? Mom, David will go mad. And what about the church group, the neighbors, my choir friends? My grandmother leaned forward, locking eyes with her daughter. It's because you feared those people that you chose lies. Now you must choose again. Truth or appearances? The room grew heavy, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall. My mother sobbed for a while longer, then nodded her first nod not to side with her husband or to shield her younger daughter, but to surrender to her own conscience. All right, I'll do it. I'll write it. Right now. Grandma switched the iPad to the Notes app and pushed it across the table. Right. Be clear, no evasion, no blame, shifting. Tell the truth. Apologize to Elysia and to everyone you deceived. And post it on Facebook and in the church group. My mother's hands shook as she typed. I, Melissa Smith, confess that my younger daughter, Haley Smith, falsely accused her sister, Elysia Smith, of stealing money. I believed this lie and acted wrongly, causing serious harm to Elysia. I sincerely apologize to Elysia and to the community for my rash and unjust behavior. We will take full responsibility to correct this mistake and restore Elysia's name at school and before the community. Grandma read every word and nodded. Add that David and Haley will both issue acknowledgments as well. And include confirmation that we have recorded evidence. My mother swallowed hard, her fingers tapping out each sentence like dragging thorns from her throat. When the post was finished, she attached a picture of the audio file not publicly released, but with a note. Evidence has been shared with trusted adults in the family and will be used if necessary. Grandma's voice was firm. Now call David. Bring him here, at the church. I will not tolerate another cover-up. Half an hour later, my father walked in, the smell of engine oil and cold wind clinging to his coat, his face twisted in irritation. What is so urgent you made me leave work? Grandma didn't waste words. She pressed play. The small room once again filled with Haley's confession, crisp and undeniable, every word sharp enough to cut. My father's expression shifted from irritation to stunned silence. He looked at my mother, then at Grandma, and after a long pause finally muttered, We can't put this out publicly. I have a standing in the church group, clients are not more important than the child you threw out into the street. Grandma Maggie's voice sliced through, her eyes like twin blades. You will put your name on that post, David. If you choose appearances over truth, I will take this recording straight to the pastor and to Child Protective Services. My father stood rigid, his jaw clenched tight, then lowered his head. He signed. There was no way back. That very afternoon, the post appeared on both my mother's and father's Facebook pages, as well as in the local church group. Within minutes, the comments poured in like rain after a drought. My God, poor Elysia, where has she been all this time? What were you thinking, sending your 16-year-old daughter into the streets? Haley must be held accountable and given immediate counseling. I once saw Alizia painting a mural at the library, such a kind girl. David, you used to preach about family discipline in the men's fellowship, what now? Each comment landed like a slap against the dignified facade my father had worn for so long. His phone buzzed endlessly, colleagues, clients, men from the church group, weekend fishing buddies, all demanding the same thing. Is this true? He stammered, fumbling excuses about a misunderstanding. But once smoke leaves the chimney, it stains the ceiling. There's no putting it back. The commanding silence he had once used to crush me suddenly became a humiliating silence before the community. His authority, built on fear and appearances, shattered like a window struck by a stone. At school, my mother immediately drafted an email to the principal and guidance counselor. Our family officially retracts all accusations against Alizia Smith. We have clear evidence that she was falsely accused. We request that her disciplinary record be corrected and that a formal statement of her innocence be circulated to her homeroom teacher and all relevant departments. We sincerely apologize for allowing a rumor to damage her educational environment. Oh. Grandma stood behind her, reading each line carefully, then insisted she add a separate letter addressed directly to the English teacher and the gym teacher, the ones who had looked at me with suspicion, so they would know exactly where they had been wrong. When those emails had been sent, Grandma finally sat down slowly, her hand resting on the iPad, exhaling a long breath as if she had held off a storm. That evening, in the church group, the pastor posted another message. The truth sets us free, but only when we dare to face it. Attached was an invitation to the upcoming community meeting, where my parents would have to stand and apologize before everyone. When my father read that, his face went pale. He turned to my mother, his voice breaking. We've lost everything. My mother lifted her head, her eyes red but dry, and spoke with a strange calm. No. We've been given a chance to do the right thing. What's left is what we must learn to let go. In Grandma's quiet house, among the neatly arranged family photos on the shelf, I wasn't there to witness the moment my father's power dissolved like salt in water. But I believed that somewhere among the flood of comments and the apologies sent out in a single afternoon, a door had opened. Not a door begging me to come back, but a door that gave back what had been taken from me: my name, my voice, and the truth standing on my side. And it was Grandma Maggie, with her stone-steady calm and a fierce, quiet love, who had placed her hand on that latch and swung it open to the light. That evening, after the posts had shaken the whole community and my father had no face left to show, Grandma drove out to find me. I was sitting in a hidden corner of the library, bent over my sketchbook, when I heard a soft voice at the door. Alizia. I lifted my head, my eyes stinging from lack of sleep, and saw that familiar figure, my grandmother in her charcoal knit coat, small frame, but eyes as steadfast as if they had never aged a day. I dropped my pen and stood up. In that instant, I couldn't hold back. I ran to her and threw my arms around her. The warmth from her thin body spread through me, so different from the skin-cutting cold outside. She whispered, "I know, my dear. I know the truth now." My tears soaked into her wool scarf, and in that embrace, for the first time in months, I felt completely believed. Grandma drove me back to her suburban home. The red brick house with its familiar wooden porch and warm yellow lights spilling down the steps felt like the refuge I had been craving. She laid out a clean bed for me, brought out a new pair of wool socks, and set down the first proper dinner I'd had in weeks. I ate and cried at the same time, while she just sat there, her eyes gentle, not interrupting, not pressing for answers, letting me release everything that had been locked up inside me. A week later, she decided to hold a family meeting right there in her living room. My parents were forced to attend. Their reputation had been worn down to the root, and Grandma Maggie was the one person they no longer dared to defy. Haley came too, her face pale, stripped of the smug confidence she'd once worn like armor. I sat there in the middle of the family circle, but for the first time I wasn't the one surrounded. Grandma sat beside me, her hand clasped over mine like a steady anchor. she began, her voice calm but firm. Today is not for bickering. It's for making things right. Elysia has endured enough. From this moment on, everything must be clear. She gestured for me to speak. I took a deep breath, my heart hammering, but my voice no longer trembled. Looking straight at my parents, I said, steady and clear, first you must send an official email to the school. Not just a private apology to me, but a statement clearing my name before my teachers and classmates. They've looked at me as a thief, and I will not let that stand another day. My mother lowered her head, her lips quivering. I already sent a letter. For the first time in my life, I cut her off. Not enough. I want an official letter from both of you, signed by both of you. And the content must be explicit. I was falsely accused. Haley fabricated the story. No more ambiguity. My father's jaw tightened, his face flushing red. You're demanding too much, Elysia. Who do you think you are, making demands of your own parents? I met his eyes, my palms clenched but my voice steady. I'm the child you threw out into the October night. I'm the one the whole school mocked for a crime I never committed. And now, I'm the only one who has the right to demand this. If you refuse, Grandma has evidence and the entire community will know even more of the truth. Do you want to find out what happens then? My father stayed silent. I saw his jaw twitching, his hand clenched so tightly that blue veins rose under the skin, but he couldn't get another word out. The evidence hung above him like a sword by a thread, one small flick and it would come crashing down. I turned to Haley. She kept her head bowed, her fingers twisting the hem of her dress. You have to apologize directly. Not through Mom, not with a few fake lines. You have to look me in the eye and say it. Haley bit her lip, silent for a long moment, then raised her head, her eyes wet but still faintly reluctant. I'm sorry, I set you up. I just wanted. I cut her off. It doesn't matter what you wanted. What matters is you destroyed me, and I lived through days you should never have had the right to force on anyone. The room went dead quiet. Grandma looked at me and gave a small nod, her eyes glowing with a quiet pride. I continued, my voice lower but firm. And finally, if there is ever a next time, if anyone in this family ever harms me again, ever belittles or sabotages me, I will cut off all contact. Permanently. There will be no second chances. My mother burst into sobs, her trembling hands covering her face. My father turned away as if trying to escape the room but finding nowhere to go. Haley sat frozen, tears falling, but no one rushed to wipe them away anymore. The power had shifted. I was no longer the child silenced by stern looks or shouted orders. I was Elysia, 16 years old, the one who could look the truth in the eye and say, I am not a child to be silenced anymore. The echo of those words tore through the old, heavy curtain that had smothered me for years. Grandma squeezed my hand and whispered, That's right, my girl, that's right. And in that moment, I knew that for the first time in my life, I had drawn my own boundary, not with tears of pleading, not with the silence of swallowed pain, but with the strength of my own voice. In the days following the family meeting at Grandma's house, the air around me shifted completely. I no longer carried the weight of a crime that had never existed. The evidence was out, my name had been restored, and for the first time in months, I could breathe like an ordinary person. Grandma kept me with her. Her suburban home, with its creaking wooden steps and the last of the yellow chrysanthemums blooming in the garden, became the haven I had never known I needed. She prepared simple breakfasts, fried eggs, toast, and a warm glass of milk, small things that somehow made me feel cared for again. Going back to school, I still felt a trace of awkwardness. The cruel whispers didn't vanish overnight, but thanks to my parents' public post and Grandma's confirmation, the looks directed at me had softened. My homeroom teacher greeted me with an apologetic nod, and my English teacher came closer and spoke quietly. I'm sorry for doubting you. You can resubmit your essay if you want. I nodded, saying little, but inside it felt as though a stone had finally been lifted from my chest. A big change came when Samantha pulled me into the school's running team. You need something to burn off your energy, to rebuild your confidence, she said. At first, I only managed a few laps, gasping for breath, my worn-out shoes nearly falling apart at the seams. The coach looked down at them, frowned, and the next day handed me a small box. "This is from the Student Support Fund. You deserve a proper pair of shoes." I opened it to find a brand new pair of navy blue running shoes. For the first time in months, my feet felt warm, secure, and each stride grew lighter. The feeling of wind rushing through my hair as I crossed the track reminded me that my body was still strong, that I had never truly fallen. At the same time, I returned to keeping a journal and painting. Grandma cleared a small corner by the window for me, set up an easel, and bought a box of paints from the art store nearby. Every afternoon, as golden light slanted across the desk, I sat there, writing down my thoughts in a notebook and then painting. I painted bare feet on cold concrete, the park bench where I once dozed clutching a trash bag, and Grandma in her wool coat, eyes sharp yet full of love. Each painting was more than an image, it was a memory transformed into strength. Samantha remained by my side, a constant anchor. She often came to Grandma's house after school, bringing pastries her mother baked, and we would sit together on the wooden porch, talking about classes and movies. Some evenings, we ran through the neighborhood streets, our laughter mingling with the hum of summer insects. I realized that despite all I had lost, I still had genuine bonds, and those bonds were my true family. Grandma also encouraged me to attend therapy. At first, I didn't think I needed it, but after my very first session, sitting in that warm room and hearing the therapist say, "You have the right to believe in yourself," I broke down in tears. The sessions helped me learn how to set boundaries, how to say no without guilt. I practiced recognizing that I wasn't responsible for the mistakes of others, that love should never come with control or humiliation. Each conversation opened another door, guiding me further away from the darkness my parents had once confined me to. Day by day, I felt myself growing stronger. My grades improved, and I even joined the school's art exhibition. When my painting was displayed in the main hall, students stopped to look, some whispering, "Alicia is back." I didn't need their apologies, I only needed to know for myself. I had never disappeared. I had only been hidden, and now I was rising. One late autumn afternoon, I sat on the wooden steps of Grandma's house, my new running shoes on my feet. Golden sunlight tilted across the yard like honey spilling over, while red maple leaves drifted slowly, spinning before they touched the ground. I inhaled deeply, feeling my chest fill without the old heaviness. From down the street came Samantha's laughter, and in the kitchen, Grandma hummed a familiar hymn. The world no longer felt as cold as the night I'd been shoved out onto the porch with nothing but a trash bag in my hands. I looked down at my shoes, remembering those first gasping, awkward runs, and smiled. Every step now was more than just running, it was a statement that I still had a road ahead. They once thought I was a failure. They once believed they could silence me with a single accusation, erase me with a door slammed shut. But they were wrong. I survived. I found myself again. And this time, no one can take the truth from me. If you're reading these words or listening to my story, I want to tell you something. Your worth does not lie in how others see you, even if others means your own family. Don't let anyone define you with contempt or favoritism. If you've ever been misunderstood, abandoned, or felt invisible in the very place meant to be your home, remember, you are not alone. I have been there too, trembling in the dark. But from that darkness, I found the light. Your worth lives in the way you stand tall, in each time you dare to say, "I'm not wrong," in every small step you take to find yourself again. And when you do, no one can strip the truth from you. No one can erase your voice. Tell your story, because somewhere out there, someone may need to hear it just to understand that they, too, are not alone.